Thanksgiving had always been a mixed bag for me, part tradition, part trauma. Every year I'd put on a smile, wear something nice, and show up with a dish that nobody asked for but everyone ate. And every year I'd somehow feel like the odd one out in my own family. This year was no different. My sister Heather hosted it at her sprawling countryside house, complete with fall-themed napkins and a golden brown turkey that she didn't cook but claimed she did. I arrived right on time with my signature sweet potato casserole, the one Mom taught me to make before she passed. Nobody greeted me at the door. I walked into a house already full of laughter, wine, and inside jokes I hadn't been part of. In years, I placed my dish next to the others and tried to blend into the background as usual. During dinner, they passed around stories like the stuffing, fluffy, warm, and full of hidden bits. My stories were ignored. My words were often interrupted. When it was time for the annual family photo, I stood quietly in the back, smiled when they said cheese, and didn't even notice anything wrong until the next morning. My cousin had posted the photo online, everyone smiling, arms wrapped around each other, everyone except me. I had been cropped out completely. Not blurred, not shadowed, not even pushed to the side. Fully gone, like I was never there to begin with. My stomach dropped, and I felt that familiar ache in my chest, the one I got when I was 12 and Dad forgot to pick me up from the school recital. I didn't cry, I didn't comment. I just stared at that image, refreshing the page, watching the likes and heart emojis pile up beneath a version of my family that didn't include me. They made their point, but what they didn't know was that I was about to make mine, and they'd never forget it. I didn't plan revenge in the way movies show it, no dramatic music, no slow-motion montage. I just sat there quietly, staring at that photo, and something inside me shifted. I thought about all the times I was told to get over it, all the times I was told I was too sensitive, and all the birthdays, celebrations, and milestones where I showed up just to be overlooked. This time, I wasn't going to be silent. I started making A-list names, dates, patterns. I wrote down every slight, every jab disguised as a joke, every time they dismissed my career, my relationship, my life. And as I wrote, the fog began to clear. I realized I had spent years playing the role they wrote for me, the overlooked sibling, the one who never amounted to much, the one who was always just there. I had let them tell my story for far too long. Not anymore. I called in sick the next day and started planning. Not a grand explosion, but a quiet demolition. I didn't want to destroy their lives. I wanted to make them see mine, and I knew exactly where to begin. I booked a local gallery space under a different name. I'd been painting in secret for years. Landscapes, portraits, abstract rage turned into color. No one in my family knew about my art. They never asked, so I decided to make my absence visible. One chose my most personal pieces, the ones I painted. Late at night, when the silence hurt more than the noise, and in the center of the gallery, I left one wall blank. Above it, a single sentence in bold black. The spaces you leave when you erase someone, that was going to be the heart of it. The opening night was a week later. The same weekend my family was throwing another gathering in. Early Christmas party Heather liked to call Thanksmas. I sent them all invitations, disguised as a community event showcasing local talent. No name, no photo, just the date, time, and venue. I didn't expect any of them to come, really, but I wanted to give them the choice. I wanted them to walk into a room where I couldn't be cropped out. The night arrived and I stood quietly in the back, heart racing, palms sweating. Slowly, people trickled in. Strangers, first locals, art lovers, a few curious passers-by, and then, just when I'd nearly given up hope, I saw familiar faces at the door. Heather, Aunt Linda, my cousin who had posted the photo. They walked in like they owned the place, scanning the room with vague confusion until their eyes landed on me. I watched their expressions change, first surprise, then awkwardness, then something resembling realization. They moved slowly through the gallery, pausing at pieces that screamed emotion they never thought I had. One canvas showed a lone figure at a crowded dinner table, painted in grays and purples, while the others around them glowed golden. Another showed a photo being torn in half, the hand in the corner clearly mine. And then they reached the blank wall. They stood before it reading the words. No one said a thing, not one word. The silence felt louder than any applause I'd ever received. I didn't approach them. I didn't need to. The next day, Heather texted me. Just a single line. Was that all about us? I stared at my phone for a while before replying. If you have to ask, maybe you already know the answer. She didn't respond, but others did. Strangers who'd come to the gallery posted about it online. The photo being torn. The dinner table shadow, the blank wall, it started gaining traction. Someone from the local news wrote a small piece. Anonymous artist leaves big message in small town gallery. My inbox filled with messages, people sharing their own stories of being erased, ignored, cropped out of their families' lives. It was overwhelming and healing all at once. I didn't do any of it for fame. I did it for myself. But in the process, I gave voice to so many who had felt what I had felt, and that, more than anything, made the years of silence worth breaking. My family didn't reach out again, not right away. But I noticed something strange happening online. The original Thanksgiving photo, it disappeared. In its place was a new one. The same family, the same smiles, but this time I was in it. They had re-uploaded the original uncropped version. No caption, no apology, just the truth. It felt like a small victory, a late acknowledgement, and somehow that was enough. Life moved forward. The gallery extended my exhibit for another week, then a month. People kept coming. I started selling prints. A publisher reached out asking if I wanted to compile my work into a book. Me. The family disappointment, the one who was too quiet. Suddenly, I wasn't so invisible anymore. But with that visibility came other challenges. I had to learn to stand in the spotlight I had spent so long hiding from. I started attending other galleries, meeting other artists, finding community in places I never thought to look. I realized I had spent my entire life trying to earn a seat at a table that was never built for me. Now I was building my own table, and others were sitting with me, people who saw me, heard me, valued me. It felt freeing. But every now and then I'd think about that Thanksgiving photo. How one tiny act cropping me out triggered a wave I never saw coming. It wasn't just about the picture. It was about the years of being sidelined, the emotional editing that had happened long before Photoshop got involved. That single image was a metaphor for how they'd treated me my whole life. And my response? That was the final BRUSHSTROKE. It wasn't just my story anymore. The emails I received were from people in their 60s who said they had never told anyone how hurt they'd felt being left out of family albums. Teenagers wrote to say, my paintings made them feel seen in a way no conversation at home ever had. A woman from out of state told me she drove 4 hours just to see the gallery because she had been cropped out of her daughter's wedding photo and it nearly broke her. I started organizing small meets intimate gatherings where people could talk, cry, or just sit silently surrounded by art. I called it the Uncropped Project. It began as a single night, then grew into monthly events. Local cafes and libraries began hosting small displays of my work, and each time I left space a blank canvas or empty chair to remind us all what it feels like when we're edited out of our own lives. I never mentioned my family by name. I didn't need to. It was never about exposing them. It was about reclaiming me, and in doing that, I gave others the courage to reclaim themselves too. My sister did come to one of the events eventually. She didn't announce herself, didn't try to make a scene. She just stood in the back, eyes watery, nodding along as someone else shared a story about being made invisible. When it ended, she came up to me quietly and said, I didn't know you felt this way. I looked at her and replied, you didn't ask. She opened her mouth to say something else, but stopped. She just nodded again and left. Time doesn't heal everything, but it helps things settle. My relationship with my family didn't magically mend, but it found a new rhythm. Fewer expectations, clearer boundaries, less noise. We started acknowledging the unspoken, slowly. At the next family event, they asked me to take the photo. I declined politely. I said, why don't we all take it together? And we did. I stood in the middle, unapologetic, smiling not because I had to, but because I chose to. It felt different. It felt earned. My cousin, the same one who cropped me out, pulled me aside after and said, you're doing something important. I'm sorry, I didn't see it sooner. I didn't rush to forgive. I simply said, thank you. Sometimes that's enough. Other times it's not. But I was no longer waiting for their approval. I had learned that family can be both the people you're born with and the people you find when you're brave enough to share your story. And my story. It had only just begun. The Thanksgiving they cropped me out wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a version of myself I never knew I had the strength to uncover. And that, more than any apology, was the real gift. I began working on a second collection. This time it wasn't about paint, it was about rebirth, about filling the space I had once been pushed out of. I painted brighter, looser, with confidence I hadn't known before. Each stroke carried a truth, not for them, but for me. A canvas titled Uninvited but Present showed a dinner table with a single chair facing the viewer, empty but glowing. Another, Echoes of Her, depicted a figure casting shadows of multiple selves, each one bolder than the last. People started recognizing me in public, not for being someone's sibling, cousin, or daughter, but for being the artist who made people feel. One day, a local teacher reached out and asked if I'd speak to her class. At first, I hesitated. What would I even say? But then I realized I'd say what I wished someone had said to me, that you matter even when you're left out, that being unseen doesn't make you invisible, that you're allowed to take up space. I stood in front of those kids and shared the story, not just about the photo, but about what led to that moment, about all the times I accepted less than I deserved, and about the moment I decided not to anymore. They listened. Some cried. One girl hugged me afterward and said, "I think I'll paint too." Years passed. The gallery wall that once held my blank canvas was now part of a permanent exhibit called Voices Unheard. New artists joined in, people who had been through similar moments of erasure and decided to turn silence into color. Every Thanksgiving, I now host a different kind of gatherings, small, inclusive, full of warmth. No one gets cropped out. The photo we take isn't perfect. Some people blink, others laugh halfway through, but everyone is in it, fully, messily, beautifully. Heather and I are still learning how to relate. We don't always get it right, but we try. That's more than I ever expected. Sometimes I catch her looking at my paintings with a softness I never saw before. Sometimes she even helps me set up events. And while she's never outright said, "I'm sorry," I can feel the apology in her actions. That's okay. I've learned that healing doesn't always come wrapped in words. Sometimes it's just someone standing next to you, quietly showing up. The day they cropped me out of that photo, they thought they were making a statement about my place in the family, but what they really did was give me a canvas I didn't know I needed. And what I gave them in return wasn't revenge, it was revelation. One they'll carry with them far longer than any framed photo. Because now, I'm not just in the picture, I am the picture.